It's Sunday, August 10th, 2025. Good evening and welcome to the daily happenings inside our federal machine. This is Spathon, and it's time to plunge into the swamp to see what's happening today. The Atlanta CDC shooter from Friday, Patrick White, age 30, blamed the COVID vaccine for his deteriorating mental health, and it appears the COVID vax may have been his motive for carrying out his attack. JD Vance was interviewed this morning and said, quote, "You are going to see a lot of people indicted over Russiagate," end quote. Also, yesterday, I covered the Trump administration seeking a $1 billion settlement from UCLA over anti-Semitism on campus. Well, UCLA is now calling the Trump administration, quote unquote, a continual assault because the government froze UCLA's federal funding for allowing anti-Semitism to occur on campus. So we'll get into that. Also, chairman of the GOP Oversight Committee, James Comer, went on national television this morning and spoke about his committee's investigations into Biden's mental decline and the Clinton subpoenas and the Russia hoax scandal. Also, there was a magnitude 6.1 earthquake in Turkey this morning, and we'll check out some footage from that event. Also, it appears that Adam Schiff is now entangled in another scandal. Apparently, he is connected to both companies named in a $7.4 billion Burisma U.S.-Ukraine corruption case. I mean, you can't make this shit up. So, President Trump, he started tackling crime in D.C. last week, and just last night, over 100 juveniles in D.C. took over a park. They shot guns, they launched fireworks, and they rode dirt bikes around. And by the way, this happened after President Trump announced a press conference on Monday specifically geared for cracking down on D.C. crime. And there's lots more to dig through, so we're going to dive right in. And if you enjoy the video, please like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I might just read your comment on the next video if you decide to drop one. So we're going to get started here with Sunday Morning Futures. This morning on Sunday Futures, Maria, she spoke with Rep. James Comer on the state of the GOP Oversight Committee's investigations into President Biden's mental decline, the Clinton subpoenas, and the Russia collusion narrative. So it's a little bit of a long one, but it's definitely worth the watch. So we're going to check this out, and we're going to see what she's got to say about all, or actually what James Comer has to say about all this. So without further ado, oh, wait, just one sec. Let me adjust the volume because I want you to be able to hear it.
Committee.
Here we go.
Kentucky Congressman James Comer. Mr. Chairman, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here.
Mr. Chair.
Good morning, Maria.
I want to first talk about these subpoenas to Hillary and Bill Clinton. When are you expecting them to come in to testify under oath?
Yesterday, preferably.
We've asked them to come in October. We've given them specific dates.
Oh, my God.
What makes these subpoenas special and historical is that...
We did know that. I actually shared that last week. There was an entire list. James Comey's going to be subpoenaed, a whole bunch of people. Loretta Lynch, James Clapper, I think, is on the list. I don't know if John Brennan's on the list yet. I think he might be. So there's a lot. There's like 10 different individuals who have been subpoenaed. And Hillary Clinton is the second to last to be subpoenaed. And, as far as the date to show up in front of Congress. And Bill Clinton is the very last one. I was very happy to hear that Bill Clinton is the last one because they're going to get all of the testimony from all these people first with regard to the Epstein files. And we all know that Bill Clinton, he's been to Epstein Island plenty of times, if not at least on the Lolita Express. We do know that. We know the flight logs. We've seen the flight logs. So that's going to be really interesting to hear what Bill Clinton has to say after they have gathered all of the evidence, well, at least the testimonial evidence, before they drag in Bill Clinton. So that's going to be a banger.
They came as a result of a bipartisan vote. The Democrats made a motion, like we knew they would, to subpoena the Epstein documents, which Republicans support. Scott Perry from Pennsylvania amended that motion to include subpoenas for both Bill and Hillary Clinton, as well as 6 former attorneys generals, and the Democrats voted for it. Now they're scared and trying to say they didn't vote for it, but they did. It's on record, and that helps us in court. If the Clintons try to fight this subpoena,
hey man, they keep saying release the files, right?
They will.
Let's get everything out.
This subpoena came as a result of a bipartisan vote, which has never happened before in the House Oversight Committee. So we're looking forward to hearing from the Clintons. The American people want to know what went on Epstein Island. We know Clinton went there many times. We just want to ask Bill Clinton what he saw when he was there and who all was involved.
Well, I mean, look,
Absolutely.
there's a lot of information to be
He would
gained
know.
from an interview under oath with Hillary and Bill Clinton, that's for sure. Would you also get into Russia collusion?
I certainly hope so.
Well, we would
I don't
like
know.
to ask about that. I'm sure their lawyers are going to be negotiating the terms. The
Right.
subpoena was issued a few days
that's not
before the
related to what
Russia
we're talking
collusion
about.
Story really broke. But certainly
That's
we're
what they're
going to
gonna keep
ask
saying.
as many questions as we can ask. This is an opportunity to get the Clintons under oath, which people have been trying.
Well, yeah, honestly, I think the whole Russia collusion thing is going to be a hell of a lot more damning than this Epstein whatever that's going on. I'm all about releasing the Epstein files, but if I had to choose between the two that are more important than the other, it's obviously going to be the Russia issue. That is way more damning than the Epstein files thing, which I totally get it. They are both extremely important because with regard to the Epstein case, Epstein Island and all that, there's over 1,000 victims that were underage at the time when all of this happened. So it's horrific, especially knowing that we've got well over 300,000 illegal immigrant children that are still missing. And the Trump administration, they've already found it's over 10,000, maybe 15,000 that they've been able to locate at this point. But that's a drop in a bucket when you're talking 300,000 children that are missing. And none of these people have been indicted with regard to Epstein Island. So all of these, who knows how many people are out there doing God knows what. You can only imagine the atrocities that could be happening. So yeah, absolutely the Epstein situation's important. However, are we going to get actual indictments? Are we going to get people who are actually going to go to jail with regard to this? And where the fuck's the client list? Now, we know that there may not be a client list with regard to bribery and blackmail. They said that. But I still think there's a client list. I mean, there's a flight log. There's flight logs. Why wouldn't there be a client list? So Jeffrey Epstein, he abused 1,000 women all by himself. Nobody else helped him do that. I mean, come on, man. Give me a fucking break.
To do for a long time. So hopefully we'll be able to do that, and we'll get answers to a lot of questions that the American people have.
So you say that they're going to be fighting this. You think this
I
is
bet
going
they
to go
will.
through the courts?
I would be shocked if it did not go to the courts. But again, one thing that stands out is this bipartisan vote. We've never had that. I've been chairman of the House Oversight Committee for a year and a half, Maria, and I've never lost a subpoena battle. This is the toughest battle that we're going to face is getting the Clintons in here. But again, that bipartisan vote, and I want to thank the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee.
Dude, that's so fucked up, man. Okay, well, obviously we all know that the Clintons are guilty as hell for just about anything they're accused of. Of course, it's not been definitively proven, but it kind of has, depending on what you're looking at. For them to fight tooth and nail to come in and answer questions over things that are just, it's beyond obvious that it's happened. Why would they be fighting tooth and nail if they did nothing wrong? If they committed crimes, then yeah, I guess you would expect them to fight tooth and nail to try to prevent themselves from coming in. But come on, man, you all have been locked up here in this whole political game for their entire adult lives. And for them to try to stonewall and try to weasel their way out of speaking in front of Congress about what they are directly involved in, if not the ones that are up near the very top pulling all the strings. I mean, it's fucking insane.
Voting
I mean,
for that
look,
subpoena.
it's to be expected, I guess.
Look, another tough battle that you've got in front of you.
I doubt they're
is
gonna be
getting to the
hopscotching into
bottom
fucking
of
Congress.
President Biden's 4 terms, 4 years in office. And what was going on there? I mean, it was all very simple and clear for everyone to see that he was, struggling in terms of his mental capacity and this use of the auto
Yeah, we know his
pen.
mental
Who was running the
capacity was
country for the
not
last
going
4
on
years
at all.
before President Trump?
We know that wasn't happening.
Well, it looks like a very small inner circle of no-name unelected bureaucrats. They had a tight reign.
Yeah, it wasn't the
over
Biden
Joe
administration.
Biden.
It was the
They didn't
bureaucratic
allow a lot of
administration.
cabinet secretaries like
That's
Pete
who was in
Buttigieg to
control.
have access to Joe Biden. They certainly didn't allow the White House press corps to have access to Joe Biden. When he did come out, he
Absolutely.
was very scripted. And what we
Yeah, wasn't that fucked up, man? Like Joe Biden, he took questions from the press almost not at all, especially just an impromptu press conference like Trump gives practically every morning, especially during his first term, man. Trump's first term, every single morning, no matter what the press would say about him during the day about Russia collusion, he's a Russian agent, he's best buds with Vladimir Putin and all that shit. He still would talk to the press every single morning around, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning in front of Marine One. He took questions for 30 minutes, 45 minutes. And they could ask him anything they wanted, and he would answer every single question. With Joe Biden, he had maybe one of those over 4 years, maybe 2 or 3. He had more than that as far as press conferences go, but they were heavily scripted to the point where you remember those cards that they would give him that there were a couple of photographers that actually got some pictures of him holding those press cards where it had in real big lettering the question that the member of the press was going to ask, and right next to that question was essentially a mugshot of that reporter, so Joe Biden would know what they actually looked like. And they took that picture that same day because the picture of them next to the question they were going to ask surely had the same outfit, because that way Joe Biden would know, like, oh, okay, this lady's wearing red. Okay, so, oh, yeah, oh, there she is. So he'd just point to her, and then he would just read the question as she's reading the question, or as she's vocalizing the question to him from the press corps. You can't make this shit up. It was absolutely crazy.
We've learned is that even when the American people realized after the Hur report and after the disastrous debate performance against Donald Trump that Joe Biden was in mental decline, his staff, we learned from Anita Dunn this week, made the decision not to give Joe Biden a cognitive test. Even when the American people were demanding a cognitive test, they made the decision, the ones who were running the country, that they were not going to give Joe Biden a cognitive test. And I think that is pretty overwhelming evidence that they feared what the results of that test would be.
Oh, yeah. I think he did literally whatever they wanted him to.
Find out about who was running the country. I mean,
remember there were a couple of times that somebody asked Joe Biden something and he answered the question. He's like, oh, no, I'm going to get in trouble for that. Or somebody would ask him something and he says, well, I can't answer that because I'm going to get in trouble if I do.
And after the Robert
Because he had
Hur
fucking
interview
handlers.
was released,
he had people telling him what to do.
A day or so later, we learned that Joe Biden had prostate cancer. But, I've got the Kevin
I don't know if I heard about that.
medical report in front of me
prostate cancer?
now. There's no mention of any mental decline. There's no mention of any prostate cancer. Why suddenly do we learn this after the Robert Hur tapes were released?
Why indeed?
Well, we've watched the Hur tapes, and they're a disaster. You understand watching the tapes why Robert Hur wrote that. I mean, that was scary. If Americans could watch that tape, and hopefully we can make that public, they would be concerned that this guy was president of the United States, had control of the nuclear football. But at the end of the day, with Dr. O'Connor, we deposed him. We brought him in for a deposition. He pled the fifth. We asked Dr. O'Connor, were you ever told to lie about Joe Biden's health? He couldn't answer that question. He pled the fifth to avoid self-incrimination.
Oh my God!
What we found about Dr. O'Connor is he
pled the fucking fifth over that?
Doing a cognitive test. He supposedly said a cognitive test was not important, even though every president in my lifetime has taken cognitive tests. And we also believe that he supposedly did not check the president for prostate cancer. Every man over 50, including myself, I'm 52, takes
Look, man, Trump takes a cognitive test. He's literally got 500 IQ.
Every time they get blood work done. So the story doesn't add up with respect to Dr. Connor. It reeks of a political cover-up, a cover-up of a president in declining health.
So do you think that this was an all-out effort by the Democrats?
You know what the Democrats are going to say? Well, Biden's still alive now, isn't he? His health can't be in that much decline because he's still with us.
Their grip on power, even though they knew that the leader in charge, Joe Biden, really did not have the capacity to keep going, and then they actually encouraged him to run for another term?
They did, and then they staged a coup, and they railroaded his ass. Kamala Harris just came right in and said, nope, we're going to take over from here. That was absolutely shocking last year when they did that, when they're just no delegates. And what really blew my mind, if you remember back to 2020 when Kamala Harris was running the first time against Joe Biden and all the others, she had 0 delegates when she dropped out of the presidential race. 0. Now, how many are there total? There's well over 1,000, isn't there? Or maybe even 2,000. I don't remember how many total delegate votes that there are when the Democrats are running for the primaries, but I know it's got to be over 1,000 in total. She had none, not a single one. And then she just, of course, she became the DEI vice president because she had the right looks, she was the right gender, the right color, and all that. And then she became the vice president. And then, we all know how the story goes. But by last summer, they just, sorry, Biden, you're not going to run because that first debate you had against Trump was an absolute disaster. I think they set him up for that, to be honest with you, because it was weird that the debate was so early. Wasn't that in June of 2024? When Trump and Biden debated the first time? I mean, debates don't usually happen until, late August, early September, when they do the first of 3 debates. And it was just really weird, man. Something just didn't sit right. And for him to just get absolutely eviscerated so badly, and then Kamala took over and started down the campaign trail, and then they realized, oh, yeah, dude, she's just as bad as she was in 2020. There is absolutely no way that this is going to work out. So we're going to do something on July 13th. something that might, that the American people might be horrified to see on national television, on live TV. Thank God that the Lord was watching out over Trump, and an absolute miracle happened that day. But they absolutely intended on that happening. I mean, there's no doubt about that at all, because the whole Democratic Party is in just disaster mode. They have been going all the way back to 2020, arguably probably going back to 2016, to be honest. I mean, they've turned absolutely evil since then. Just lies and cover-ups and more lies and just trying to get everybody brainwashed and on the DEI agenda and gender this and transgender that, and men are women now, women are men now. It's just absolute lunacy. Latinx, and I mean, it just goes on and on forever. It's absolutely
crazy,
man.
It. And that's what's the most shocking about this whole thing. This didn't just happen around the time of the debate between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. This happened, a year prior to that, and yet this small inner circle wanted to keep this man in the Oval Office, even though they knew he couldn't perform the duties of President of the United States for another 4 years. That's what's so disappointing about all of this. And what you see with the last 90 days, that's when I think the auto pen was abused the most, Maria. The last 90 days after Donald Trump wins the election and you're in that lame duck period, they start cranking stuff through that auto pen like crazy. Pardons, thousands of pardons, and executive orders whose sole purpose of these executive orders was to Trump-proof the Trump administration, to make it harder to get federal employees to come back to work, to make it harder to eliminate agencies like the Department of Education. So that's why this investigation is important. We believe that there's a possibility that a lot of these executive orders and pardons can be declared null and void in a court of law.
So you're saying that those pardons may not be legal?
I mean, yeah, the pardons may not be legal. The whole auto pen thing, I don't think that any federal judge, I don't think even the Supreme Court's going to overturn all those auto pen signings, because think about it, they're going to have to go all the way back to when it started. Auto pen didn't just start with Biden. It goes all the way back to like the 1960s or 1940s or some shit. They've been using auto pen for a really long time. That's just one of those random things that the people just don't know about the goings on with the federal government. Just like Marjorie Taylor Greene, she revealed that members of Congress don't have to be personally present to vote on shit. She was one of those people that, like, when she went into Congress and she learned that, she kind of blew the lid open on that, which technically people probably knew, experts knew, but your everyday Americans who just go to work, 9-to-5 job Americans, they didn't know that you as a member of Congress can send in somebody on your behalf to sit in there and vote for you. It's unbelievable. And she also discovered a roll call. I think that's what it was. It's roll call. So as a member of Congress, you're sitting there on the House floor, and there's a bill that's coming up. So the Speaker of the House is like announcing, okay, we got this bill on the floor. Do we have the yays? Do we have the nays? Well, any member of Congress can stand up and demand a roll call, in which case that every single member of Congress who votes on this bill has to be standing there and present. And they have to verbally speak their name on the House floor. So she became a real problem with the establishment when she first got in and realized that she had the power to do that. So when these bills that would come up on the House floor for a vote that she didn't agree with, she would make a roll call announcement, and it would essentially just jam up everything they were doing. But anyway, I mean, I'm not saying I'm like the hugest fan of Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm just saying, like, if you don't like her very much, she's done a few good things out there, just to say the least.
Or legitimate?
I am saying that, Maria. And if you look at Joe Biden's one interview he's given,
I hope it happens, but I don't
post-presidency
about
the auto pen was
really
with the New York
do,
Times, and he admitted to the New York Times that that he just delegated that to staff.
Look, this whole, what was it called? Preemptive pardon? Is that what they did? Like with regard to Anthony Fauci or whatever, like Joe Biden pardoned him, even though he hadn't even been indicted for anything. Anthony Fauci wasn't indicted for anything. He wasn't at the time when that pardon was signed. Of course, he was probably accused of doing quite a bit. Of course, the American public, they've been accusing him of all kinds of shit going back to 2020. No. Going back to like the 1980s with the whole AIDS shit. I mean, he was a demon back then. And for him to issue him a pardon over something that didn't even happen yet, I mean, that's like Minority Report pre-crime bullshit. It doesn't make any sense that a president could actually sign a pardon for somebody over crimes that haven't even been filed or like they don't exist. There are no indictments against them. What the hell is there to pardon them over? That didn't make sense to me. So I don't know if they might at least try to get that overturned. That would certainly be nice. But I'm no expert.
Unbelievable.
What do I know?
All right, we will leave it there. Mr. Chairman, great to see you. We'll be following your work, sir. Thank you.
All right. Yep. We'll have to
Thank
see
you.
what
All
comes
right,
of that.
Congressman James
So
Comer, stay with us.
we'll just
Miranda,
move on to the next one from here. This comes from, what happened? All right. No, we're good. From Senator Bill Hagerty. Great point at VP. He is responding to what this post, Rapid Response 47. So I'll go ahead and play this first before I read his response. So California has way more House seats than it should because they have such a high population of illegal aliens. They get rewarded for welcoming illegal aliens into their state, asking the taxpayers of states like Ohio to subsidize them. That's ridiculously unfair. Now, with California, they've got, 50 House seats or 52 House seats or something like that. But yet they only have 9. I believe it's 9. Only 9 seats in California are held by Republicans, despite the fact that something like 40% of California voted Republican. That doesn't seem to make sense, really. That's very disproportionate. It's because of all the gerrymandering bullshit. But anyway, let's check this out.
The other thing that we talked about, and I didn't even realize this
that's a little
until a
loud.
couple
All right, we're
of
good.
years ago, that for apportioning representatives, you actually count illegal aliens. So even though illegal
Yes, you
aliens
do.
theoretically are not supposed
In the U.S.
to vote,
Census,
we know
they're counted.
sometimes they do, you still count illegal aliens for congressional apportionment.
Now, the Democrats, they say that it's in the Constitution that all, I don't know how they worded it, humans or all men or all whatever are counted. So they may have a bit of legal standing when it comes to that, because I don't know, but maybe not, because the Supreme Court could just interpret the Constitution and say, no, it doesn't apply to illegal immigrants, illegal aliens, and that's it. So I'm sure it's going to probably go before the Supreme Court. But I believe that the Trump administration back in 2020 did this already. The Supreme Court already heard this, where the Trump administration wanted a question added to the census for every American to answer, are you a U.S. citizen? They wanted that one simple question to be added into the U.S. Census for everybody to answer, and the Supreme Court said no. I think it was the Supreme Court. It may have not have been. It could have been just a federal judge, maybe. It might have just gone to a federal judge, and maybe some leftist, progressive Obama judge may have struck it down. But I'm just, memory serves, I think it might have been a Supreme Court issue, and I think it was denied that, but
So California has
I don't know,
way
we'll
more
see.
House seats than it should because they have such a high population of illegal aliens. So they get rewarded for welcoming illegal aliens into their state, giving them federal benefits, actually asking the taxpayers of states like Ohio to subsidize them. And then those same taxpayers in Ohio and Indiana and elsewhere, they have fewer congressional representatives because of what California has allowed to happen. That's ridiculously unfair. And the only real way to fight back against it is for us to redistrict in some ways as aggressively as these hard blue states have done.
Well, and look, somebody actually made a really good point with regard to illegal immigrants self-deporting. What you do, if you can't go after the immigrants themselves, go after the institutions that they rely on. By that I mean the rental units, the landlords, also the utility companies. If a utility company is providing electricity to an illegal immigrant and they didn't verify that, then heavily fine that company. Especially with landlords. Landlords could be they could be threatened with jail time, or they could be heavily fined. They could, I don't know if some states require any kind of credentials when it comes to landlords. Not really sure about that, but that's what we should really be going after. We should be going after people who are providing housing and utility services, things like that. Employment. There is something called E-Verify. I think there used to be something called E-Verify where you start a job and they run your name, they run your social through E-Verify to make sure that you are legally allowed to work in the country. So any employer who hasn't run their employees through E-Verify, heavily fine that employer, heavily fine that company to the point where they have no choice but to do so. And if illegal immigrants, if they can't find a job anywhere, if they can't rent anywhere, they're going to have no choice but to self-deport. So that way you don't have to send ICE all over the place trying to round up 20, 30, 40 million people, because that's not mathematically possible to do. I mean, realistically, you cannot round up that many people. Not in 4 years. Now, if J.D. Vance wins in 2028, or if the Republicans keep the presidency, maybe, obviously, they're going to have plenty of more time to round up more and more. But the best thing that they can do is try to get the immigrants to self-deport. And I think that's a really good direction to take it, to go after where they're living, utilities, employment, things like that. So I don't know. Somebody, I wish I remember who said that. I don't think it was a no, I don't think it was a politician who mentioned that. I think it was actually just some random person on X who actually said that. But I thought that made a hell of a lot of sense, and nobody's talking about that. But that would be one good way of weeding out a lot of them. And plus, they're offering free flights. The government, they're offering a free flight back to your country of origin and a $1,000 voucher once you set back on the ground. Like, they'll give you $1,000 once you get back to your home country to somewhat reestablish yourself. I mean, $1,000 probably doesn't go very far these days, but maybe it does in their country, their home country. Probably does. All right, anyway, this is from Congressman Greg Steube. This week was just another reminder that President Trump is leading a manufacturing revolution here in America. Apple is committing another $100 billion worth of investments in our country, including a glass factory. Our workers finally have a fair shake with a president who is committed to fair trade, and Republicans delivered no tax on tips and increased tax credits for businesses who bring manufacturing jobs back to the United States. That's called putting America first. Let's check out this one. Maybe. Let's go.
This is just another deal that the president has done on top of all of these other deals to bring manufacturers back to the United States. We passed the big, beautiful bill that obviously approaches the tax perspective of this. So now companies have a permanency as a...
Check that out. That also just happened. Trump raises India tariffs to 50% over the Russian oil imports. There was a reporter the other day who asked Trump, she put him on the spot, and he didn't have an answer for it. It was one of the rare uncomfortable moments that Trump had. So an Indian woman from India, she said that you're threatening to put higher tariffs on India because we're buying Russian oil. Well, what about the United States that's importing tons of oh crap, what were the goods that we were importing from Russia? Fertilizer. Fertilizer was one of them, and fuck, I can't remember the other one. But I know fertilizer was the big one. And anyway, she mentioned one other commodity, and she's like, so isn't that kind of hypocritical that you're demanding China to stop buying oil from Russia, but on the other hand, your country's buying tons of fertilizer from Russia? I mean, that doesn't make sense. But Trump's answer was, he said, I don't know about that, but we can get back to you. So he just kept it short and simple. I get India's conundrum, though, but India is the #1 most populated country in the world. It's no longer India or China. It's India now. India's now, they have more people in their country than any other country on earth, and it's still a very quick developing country. So their GDP is, I think it's still in the double digits, or increasing GDP year over year. So, I mean, where are they going to get all this oil from? I mean, they got to get it from somewhere. And frankly, I know we've got tons of oil here in the United States, but do we have enough oil to ship and provide 100% to India? I don't know if we have enough oil for all that. But all right, anyway, I know I'm getting off track.
Relates to their tax rate. We've increased tax credits for manufacturers to bring their manufacturing back to the United States. We have a president that's putting America first, and you're seeing businesses respond to that in a very positive way.
That's a very good thing. Yep, we'll see what happens. More businesses coming back, man. Apple's $600 billion. That is so much money. I don't know if that necessarily means that Apple's going to be 100% manufacturing everything in the U.S., but hell, man, $600 billion, that's a lot. I know a sizable amount of that is actually going in for AI, because Apple wants to jump into the AI game. Not sure how successful they'll be unless they just keep all of their AI infrastructure internal. Because I'm sure there's still a demand for Apple products in companies. However, it's still very proprietary, though, Apple. So, I don't know. But either way, man, that's a hell of a win. All right, so from Scott Lincecum, Goldman's latest, but still very early, analysis of tariff effects through June of 2025. Foreign exporters absorbed 14% of U.S. tariffs. U.S. companies ate 64%. U.S. consumers ate 22%. Protected U.S. companies also raised prices, and consumers will see bigger price increases, which they're predicting to be 70% through the fall. I don't know. I'm kind of calling BS on that because consumers are kind of tapped out if they hadn't noticed. I mean, credit card debt's at its all-time high. What is it at? Like $1.7 trillion right now. The same with student loan debt. It's about the same. The car debt is the same thing. New cars, used cars, people are just tapped out when it comes to paying their car payments. health insurance, car insurance. I mean, you just name off everything. Food, utilities, everything is just up. And people are at the point where the majority of people who make $100,000 a year, they say they live paycheck to paycheck now. $100,000 a year. And the majority, it was like 65, 70% of people who make exactly $100,000 a year, they say they're paycheck to paycheck. So if they're going to raise consumer goods up as much as 70% through the fall just because of tariffs, I mean, good luck selling all your products. It's going to boil down to simple supply and demand. If there's no demand for your products and you're just piling up your supply of products, you're going to have no choice but to lower your prices. So you're not going to be able to jack up prices and maintain a high supply while having no demand because nobody can afford to buy your shit. I mean, just go talk to the automakers. I mean, they know exactly that. Like Ford and GM, Stellantis, they're dealing with all that right now. They've got this huge supply of vehicles because they're charging too much damn money and nobody can afford it. Everybody's got too much negative equity wrapped up in their vehicles. So anyway, so this is from Rep. Rokana. I will now move to subpoena the Epstein birthday book. There's an Epstein birthday book, apparently. Epstein's estate has indicated it will comply with the subpoena in response to my letter with the oversight Dems. And we need this critical piece of evidence while protecting the privacy of the victims. So this is kind of interesting. So this is by email and first-class mail. So let's see. It was addressed from Robert Garcia, Rokana, Congress of the United States, House of Representatives, so on and so forth. They're on the Committee of Oversight and Government Reform. So a letter request, Dear Representatives Garcia and Kana, on behalf of the estate of Jeffrey Epstein, please accept this in response to your July 25th, 2025 letter requesting that the estate produce a complete unredacted copy of what has been publicly alleged to be a book presented to Mr. Epstein on the occasion of his 50th birthday in 2003. The estate is on record that it will comply with all lawful process and fully intends to do so. While the estate respects the authority and responsibilities of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, the estate's work in implementing the much-lauded Epstein's Victims Compensation Program has made it keenly aware of the desire of many victims of Mr. Epstein to maintain their privacy unless and until they themselves decide to come forward. If and when the committee issues an appropriate subpoena, we request that it recognize the important privacy interests of victims and other women who may be referenced in a demeaning or disparaging manner and who, without appropriate redactions, could become fodder for public speculation and innuendo. So, and by the way, that's Daniel H. Weiner and Daniel Rizumna, counsel for the co-executors of the estate of Jeffrey Epstein. So it sounds like that this birthday list or birthday book exists, but all they're asking is that they can redact the names of the victims that might be named in this book, which they're going to be fine with. And I'm sure even the Republicans that are demanding the Epstein files be released, I'm sure they'd be fine with that too. It's not the victims that anybody's interested in. We know there's victims. We know there's 1,000 victims, if not more than that. We want to know who's on these freaking client lists. And okay, fine, there's no blacklist or there's no blackmail list. All right, fine, but there is a client list. There has to be a client list because there's flight logs. I mean, there's people going to Epstein Island. So I don't care how they word it or how they frame it. We just want to know. We want to know. We want Bill Clinton's name. We want Bill Gates' name, and who else was there? Tom Cruise, I think, and a whole bunch of other people. There's a whole bunch of celebrities and elitists and all that were on this list. Hundreds of names. That's who we want to see. The whole victims thing's fine. But I thought this was interesting because there might be a birthday book out there that may have quite a few names, and it looks like at least the Democrats are going to subpoena that, which I appreciate. I think that's good that they're doing that. Look, if they want to get the Epstein files released, I'm all for it. So, and over on the House committee that's subpoenaing the Clintons and all the Obama people, it's regarding the Epstein files. They're bringing them in and having them testify with regard to the Epstein files. And like I said, I'm like a broken record. I keep saying the same thing. I think the Biden administration, Joe Biden, he wasn't cognitively there, but whoever was pulling those strings, all the bureaucrats that were behind him, I think they destroyed all those Epstein files. I think they did. And I think that's why Democrats keep screaming, release the Epstein files, because they know damn well there aren't any. And I don't know. I think Pam Bondi, she probably probably spoke a little too soon, thinking that there was plenty there. When she opened up the file jacket after she announced the big announcement that we're releasing the Epstein files next week. Here's all these binders for all the journalists to take their pictures with and all that bullshit. Remember when that happened? And then she opens up the file jackets and realizes, oh my God, there's nothing here. It's all gone. I don't know. That's just my own personal opinion. Whatever. I think it's just all smoke and mirrors to direct us away from other major issues that are going on. But all right. But anyway, this is interesting here from the Los Angeles Times. A continual assault. How UCLA's research facility is grappling with Trump's funding freeze. So from the LA Times, of course, it's progressive. I think it's a paywall article. I think the LA Times they're always paywalling their shit. So maybe not. Oh, yep, there it is. That's what I thought. Oh, man, it won't even let me no, it won't. All right, well, here, let me try this. Sometimes this works. Let me see if I can... where did that go? Here we go. All right. Is it going to pop up? Hey, look at this. Looks like we might be able to get some of it. So I covered this yesterday that the Trump administration, they froze $550 million worth of federal funds to UCLA because they engaged in anti-Semitic behavior. The university allowed these protests to occur, and there were many Jewish students that were targeted with harassment, and I don't know if they were doxxed or what. I'm sure they probably were, but there were a lot of Jewish students that were victimized from this rampant anti-Semitism that was going on campus. So the Trump administration, they froze $584 million in grant funding against UCLA until they made a settlement and agreed to pay these victims of anti-Semitism a certain, probably undisclosed amount. But right now, the Trump administration is looking for $1 billion settlement with UCLA, which will be the largest settlement. So far, Brown University, I think it was Brown, and Columbia University, they've already made settlements because they were engaged in anti-Semitism too. And they made settlements in the hundreds of millions of dollars. So they wrapped that up, and now they're going after UCLA. I'm sure there's plenty of other universities that were doing the same shit. So in addition to this anti-Semitism, for UCLA to promise that they're going to crack down on it. They're not going to allow this to happen again, not even as much as protesting with regard to anti-Semitism. They also have to agree to no more men in women's locker rooms, no more men in women's sports, all of that stuff, all the woke, all the DEI, all that stuff that they're also engaged with. They have to put a stop to all that too. That's going to be part of that $1 billion settlement that the Trump administration's looking for. But anyway, so I'll read a little bit of this. A continual assault, how UCLA's research faculty is grappling with Trump's funding freeze. Look, man, y'all are guilty as hell. And it was UCLA's, it was the UCLA faculty who essentially brainwashed these students into becoming anti-Semitic in the first place. Do you think that these students went through K through 12 and then just went into college just anti-Semitic all of a sudden? Free Palestine, gays for Palestine, now we're pro-Hamas for whatever reason. Were they anti-Israel? I mean, they learned all this shit in college, man. Come on, let's be real. Of course, they got it from the faculty. But anyway, so the Trump administration's suspension of grants at UCLA totaling $584 million has imperiled research in an array of subjects. All these poor faculty members. Professors at the university said that some researchers rely on the funding to pay their salaries, and the loss of the money could be devastating. Oh, no. Yeah, because it's not like that we should really give a crap about these actual victims, these Jewish students who were dealt with a rash of shit for the last, probably 2 years, dealing with all the crap that had been going on campuses with all these protests and all this shit. But oh no, the poor faculty, the ones who really honestly started all this shit, they're the ones that stirred the pot. They're the ones that started all of it. But oh no, we can't get paid now. Oh, the horror. Anyway, let me make this a little larger if I can. All right. I know we're going to be stuck with this stupid paywall bullshit in the bottom. But anyway, their medical research focuses on potentially life-saving breakthroughs in cancer treatment and developing tools to more easily diagnose debilitating diseases. Isn't AI already taking care of that? I already heard that they're making breakthroughs in cancer with just AI algorithms. Anyway, their studies in mathematics could make online systems more robust and secure. But as the academic year opens, the work of UCLA's professors in these and many other fields have been imperiled by the Trump administration's suspension of $584 million in grant funding. which University of California President James B. Milliken called a death knell to its transformative research. Look, man, pay the settlement. Then you can get your federal funding back. I don't think they should be getting any federal funding. How much money does UCLA have in their endowments? Or how much money does UCLA pull in on an annual basis with regard to admissions and the bookstore and all that shit that they take in, donations? And yeah, it's got to be probably well over $1 billion a year. That wouldn't surprise me at all. So why are they getting grant funding when it's essentially a profitable company, basically at this point? But anyway, the freeze came after a July 29th U.S. Department of Justice finding that the university had violated the civil rights of Jewish and Israeli students by providing an inadequate response to alleged anti-Semitism they faced after October 7th, 2023 Hamas attack. Look at that, alleged anti-Semitism. Well, they say they were engaged in it, but it was really just pro-Palestine. They weren't protesting because they hate Jews. They were protesting because, the poor, starving people. No, come on, give me a fucking break. There were Jewish students who were assaulted for being Jewish. Anyway, the fight over the funding stoppage intensified Friday after the Trump administration demanded that UCLA pay $1 billion fine, among other concessions, to resolve the accusations. And California Governor Newsom said the state will sue, calling the proposal extortion. Oh my God, dude. You can't make this shit up. And what's funny is that they don't go over the other concessions, but I did. And I didn't even give you all of them. Those were just a few of them. So let's see. Amid heightened tensions in Westwood, thousands of university academics are in limbo. In total, at least 800 grants, mostly from National Science Foundation and the National Institute of Health, have been frozen. Well, too fucking bad. Too bad. This is what you get for being racist on campus. UCLA scholars described days of confusion as they struggled to understand how the loss of grants would affect their work and scrambled to uncover new funding sources or roles that would ensure their continued pay or that of their colleagues. While professors still have jobs and paychecks to draw on, many others, including graduate students, rely on grant funding for their salaries, tuition, and healthcare. Poor babies. At least for the moment, though, several academics told the Times that their work had not yet been interrupted. So far, no layoffs have been announced. So anyway, the article goes on a little bit longer. If you're a member of the LA Times, if you pay for it, then you probably already read it, to be honest with you. But if not, you could just open up Google Chrome, or you can use Brave. That's what I use. You can open up one of those incognito tabs, and you'll find this link in the description. Every article that I open up for each of my videos, I link everything in the description. So you can copy latimes.com and all this stuff after. Copy it, paste it into an incognito window, and it should let you at least read the article, unless you want to read it when it's dark gray like that. I don't know. It's annoying. It's very annoying. I can't stand mainstream paywalls, but I get it. They're desperate. They're on the verge of bankruptcy, as they should be. All right, so let's head back and let's go to the next one. From the New York Post, J.D. Vance, you are going to see a lot of people get indicted over Russiagate. Hell yeah, son. Hell yeah, son. See, New York Post, they don't paywall their shit. J.D. Vance, 2028. All right, let's make this a little bit larger. Get rid of that. All right, we good to go. VP Vance said in an interview Sunday that, quote, a lot of people, end quote, are about to get indicted over the Obama administration's machinations on so-called Russiagate. Without divulging specific names of who will get charged, Vance pointed to recent disclosures from Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard as ironclad evidence that there had been an aggressive violation of the law revolving around Russiagate. Yeah, that's pretty obvious. Quote, I absolutely want to see indictments, end quote, Vance told Fox News, Sunday Morning Futures, in a pre-taped interview. Of course, you've got to have the law follow the facts here. You don't just indict people to indict people. You indict people because they broke the law, he went on. If you look at what Tulsi Gabbard and Kash Patel had revealed in the last couple of weeks, I don't know how anybody can look at that and say there was an aggressive violation of the law. Let's see. I absolutely think they broke the law, and you're going to see a lot of people get indicted for that, he later added. Last month, Gabbard began unveiling a tranche of documents about the Obama administration's investigation of Russia meddling in the 2016 election. Among the disclosures was the declassification of a 2020 House Intelligence Committee report crafted by Republicans that found there was insufficient evidence that Russia favored President Trump in 2016. And Gabbard also divulged material showcasing that top intelligence bosses had evidence that Russia did not hack 2016 voting systems in a way That allowed them to change the election outcome. What they basically did is they defrauded the American people in order to take Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign talking points and turn them into intelligence, Vance said, accusing the Obama-era intelligence apparatus of lying about what the intel said. Quote, they would take something that supported a Hillary Clinton campaign talking point and they would overemphasize it and exaggerate it, and quote, the vice president continued. Quote, they took anything that actually contradicted that narrative and they buried it deep, end quote. Following the revelations from Gabbard, the Justice Department formed a strike force to begin assessing whether there were any criminal violations in what had been uncovered. I would absolutely certainly hope so. Last week, U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi moved to open a grand jury to probe Obama administration officials. Grand juries are used to determine whether or not to hand down indictments, which, by the way, federal grand juries, they indict 99% of the time. Vance broadly argued that they actually laundered Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign talking points through an American intelligence services. He did not specify names, though. Former CIA Director John Brennan and former DNI James Clapper had hit back at Gabbard, pointing to a 2020 bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee report, which noted that the panel heard consistently that analysts were under no politically motivated pressure to reach specific conclusions. Clapper and Brennan also inked an op-ed insisting that the 2017 Intelligence Committee report that was the center of Gabbard's ire never described collusion between Trump. And they also stood by their claims that the Kremlin preferred him in the 2016 election. A spokesperson for former President Barack Obama issued a rare statement rebuffing Gabbard. Quote, the bizarre allegations are ridiculous and a weak attempt at distraction. Spokesperson Patrick Rodenbush said last month, nothing in the document issued last week undercuts the widely accepted conclusion that Russia worked to influence the 2016 presidential election but did not successfully manipulate any votes. All right. Okay, dude. All right, dude. So that'll be linked in the description if you want to read that on your own time. So this comes from Libs of TikTok. Former Obama official says that gerrymandering is a threat to democracy, but it's good for only Democrats to gerrymander now to save democracy. You see, the rules for thee, not for me. At it again.
Let me ask
Here we
you,
go.
how can gerrymandering both be a threat to democracy and also the way to save it?
Well, there's no question that gerrymandering is a threat to our democracy. It allows politicians to pick their voters.
So why are you doing it?
As opposed to citizens choosing their representatives. But we are now in a situation where we find ourselves where authoritarian moves are being made by the White House through various states, Texas most prominent among them, and there has to be a response to.
The fuck's he talking about? The White House has nothing to do with what's going on in Texas. That's a state level issue. Fuck's he even talking about?
What I've said is that we have to
He's an idiot.
Protect our democracy now if we ultimately want to be able to save it. And so taking the reasonable steps that have been
Oh my God, dude, the Democratic Party's brain dead. They're fucking brain dead.
proposed
They're brain dead.
in California, I think it makes a great deal of sense in this moment. A temporary way in which to respond to that which is happening in Texas, with the thought that after this crisis has passed, we get back to the fight against gerrymandering by anybody.
Oh my God, dude, it's so hilarious. Gerrymandering's so evil, but not when we're doing it. When we're doing it, it's for good, because we're the party of hopes and feelings. We're not the party of rationality and logic. It's fucking absurd. It's ridiculous, man. Just typical fucking propaganda. All right, so this is from the New York Daily News. Atlanta CDC shooter blamed COVID vaccine for his depression. Uh-oh. Now, I said this the other day when this first happened. My first immediate thought when they said that the CDC was targeted by this shooter in Atlanta, my instant first thought, which was probably a lot of other people's first thought, was this guy in some way or another, like did his mother die from COVID, or did somebody get the vaccine and they died from it that was in his like inner circle or family, immediate family? That's what I thought. I thought maybe that it's kind of the United Healthcare CEO situation all over again. And it turns out that it might be the case. Uh-oh. This is not good. So the man who unleashed a hail of bullets on the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention on Friday, killing a police officer, by the way, this is from New York Daily News. I think I already said that, though. Blamed the COVID-19 vaccine for his depression, authorities said Saturday. Patrick White, age 30, was found dead in a pharmacy across the street from CDC headquarters in Atlanta, where he had opened fire on the agency. Investigators said it wasn't immediately clear if he shot himself to death or if bullets fired by responding cops had killed him. White blamed the COVID vaccine for his deteriorating mental health, according to law enforcement officials and his father. He was very unsettled, and he was very deeply believed that vaccines hurt him and were hurting other people, White's neighbor Nancy Holist told the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Cops said White initially tried to enter the CDC's main building but was turned away, so he set up across the street and began shooting. David Rose, a 33-year-old DeKalb County police officer, was fatally shot responding to the scene. That was very unfortunate. When it first broke out, they hadn't reported that he had died just yet. At the time that it first happened, they were just saying that the shooter had died. So that was really sad to hear. Anyway, Health Secretary Robert Kennedy Jr.'s anti-vaccine crusades helped catapult him into his current job as the nation's top health official. Kennedy had repeatedly criticized the COVID vaccine since it was released, even though multiple scientific studies have shown it likely saved millions of lives. Yeah, but see, the problem with the COVID vaccine is that it's not a vaccine, in my opinion. It's not. It's a therapeutic. Because they had come out and admit, even Fauci came out and admitted that if you get the COVID vaccine, well, you're still going to get COVID, but at least the symptoms that you have, it'll keep you out of the hospital. If you get the COVID vaccine, the symptoms won't be as bad. So you'll be able to just get through it at home if you get the COVID vaccine. Well, that's not a vaccine. A vaccine means that you don't get COVID from in the first place. That's what vaccines do. They prevent you from getting whatever you're getting vaccinated against. But for them to say that, well, you're going to get COVID anyway, even if you get the first vax, the second one, the third booster, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh booster. Yeah, all those idiots who got all those boosters, they got COVID anyway. We all got COVID. We all did. So, all right. I don't know, man. That's just frustrating. So, dismissed CDC employees have called for the resignations of Kennedy and Russell Vaught, the Office of Management and Budget Director who was appointed by President Trump. We want the bureaucrats to be traumatically affected, Vaught said in 2024 before he got the job. When they wake up in the morning, we want them to not want to go to work because they're increasingly viewed as the villains. The CDC told employees to work from home or take leave on Monday. So, I don't know, man. There you have it. Yep, one of my fears seems to have been realized, that he may have done what he did because the COVID vax screwed him up. I mean, maybe it didn't physically screw him up, but he had the mentality that it did. So in a roundabout way, it did screw him up because it convinced him that he was suffering from the COVID vaccine, that he was all of a sudden really depressed. Although I haven't heard that as a normal symptom, or not normal, but even a somewhat rare symptom when it comes to COVID vaccination side effects. But that's not to say that it can't happen. I mean, maybe it did. All right, so this is from One America News. Trump attributes Pelosi's unprecedented stock market success to inside information and calls for an investigation. This is from One America News Network. So we'll bring this up and have a quick look at this. And, of course, I'll link this in the description just like everything else. A little too big, but yeah, here we go. So President Donald Trump attributed former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's unprecedented stock market success to inside information due to her husband's ability to outperform every hedge fund in 2024, all of them. How the hell do you outperform every hedge fund? Not by luck, that's for sure. And of course, what she'll say, Nancy Pelosi, she's like, well, that's my husband's thing. My husband does all the stock stuff. I don't do all the stock stuff. Of course, you're going to tell us your husband did because that allows you to avoid accountability. But anyway, so Trump said, quote, crooked Nancy Pelosi and her very interesting husband beat every hedge fund in 2024. In other words, these two very average minds beat all of the super geniuses on Wall Street, thousands of them. It's all inside information. Is anybody looking into this? Trump wrote in a Saturday Truth Social post. President Trump also referred Pelosi's prior impeachment attempts against him, adding, she is a disgusting degenerate who impeached me twice on no grounds and lost. So how are you feeling now, Nancy? President Trump's remarks referred to the stock market success of Paul Pelosi, husband of Nancy, who reportedly achieved a 54% return in just 2024 alone, significantly outperforming the S&P 500's 25% gain while also outperforming major hedge funds. So his well-timed investments raised eyebrows, especially Move last year, and selling $2.2 million worth of shares in Microsoft just months before the company faced an antitrust probe by the Federal Trade Commission. It's almost as if she knew that ahead of time and told her husband. Very weird. Weird. So meanwhile, Pelosi had denied all the allegations of insider trading. A spokesperson, Ian Krager, told the New York Post last month that the former House Speaker does not own any stocks and has no knowledge or subsequent involvement in any transactions. No, she comes home and she tells her husband what to buy, and he fucking buys it. We know this. Well, I mean, come on, we know this. Maybe it's not in black and white, but how the hell else is he getting all this information? Dude, you're the Speaker of the fucking House. You're the one who decides what bills get to the floor and which ones don't. I mean, come on. So the couple's net worth reportedly rose to as much as $413 million in 2024, according to a Bloomberg report, which is absolutely hilarious. So anyway, it goes on a little bit longer. It'll be down below if you want to check it out. So let's move on here to this Turkey earthquake from RT. Buildings collapse as a magnitude 6.1 quake strikes in Turkey. So let's check this out here. Not good, man. Earthquakes, man, those things are scary. Come out of nowhere. All right, so there you go. It makes me wonder if this earthquake was a result of that 8.8 earthquake that hit off the coast of Russia recently. I mean, hell, that earthquake was so powerful, it triggered a freaking volcanic eruption, man. I don't know. Earthquakes tend to do that. They tend to rattle the Earth's crust to a point where it might trigger other quakes to occur. So, I mean, it's possible, I guess. But here, we got another one.
Allah'ım. Yıkıldı.
What are
Allah'ım.
those, bricks? Blocks? Maybe from the roof? Yeah, it might have been roof shingles, maybe. Or the Spanish tile roof. Yep, that's not good. Here, actually, I think that was the one that we just watched, wasn't it? Yeah, I think so. And 16. Might not have seen this one. Let's check out this one. Yeah, I think I skipped over this one. Maybe not.
Allah'ım.
No, yeah, I think we did. Just a longer version.
Yıkıldı.
Oh, so the top of that came off. It was like a Coslo or something. Or a chimney. All right. Yeah, man, that sucks. So there it is. That's the epicenter. So that's where it struck if you're familiar with geography. I'm not too good with geography, but there you have it. Tremors were felt in Istanbul. So it was a 6.2 earthquake that struck Turkey. So yeah, it was actually really close to Istanbul. And Bursa and Kindikal. So yeah, not good. Actually, do I have another one? Yeah, we did that one. And yeah, we did that one too. So, yep, that's it. It's awful. Earthquakes, always scary as hell, man. So this is from the Glockford files. Adam Schiff and all of his Democrat and Rhino friends who participated in the failed Russian collusion coup need to be brought to justice for the good of our republic. Amen.
Let me just ask you one final question. Can you look right into the camera and say, I know for a fact the government...
By the way, this is from 2016. I actually forgot to mention that. Of course, it's displayed right there, but I got to make that apparent. Which is absolutely hilarious because he's lying his ass off here. So
The government of Vladimir Putin was behind the hacks of John Podesta. Look right into the camera and say, I know for a fact the government of Vladimir Putin was behind the hacks of John Podesta's email.
Absolutely. The government of Vladimir Putin was behind the hacks of our institution and the dumping of information.
Of John Podesta's email.
Not only in the United States, but also in Europe.
Okay, you're not, you know what, you're dodging.
Ed Tucker,
you can say, I know they did. John Podesta's
Oh my God, dude, I'm going to get freaking copyrighted with this freaking song.
Ronald Reagan.
You're carrying water for the Kremlin.
You're sitting in Congress on the Intel Committee, and you can't say they hacked.
You're gonna have to move your show to RT Russian television because this is perfect.
This is beneath your office because it's so dumb.
I think I'm too late.
I'm asking you, did they hack Podesta's emails? You can't say it. Look in the camera and say they hacked John Podesta's emails. We know for a fact that Putin's government did that. You can't, and you know you can't, and you're hiding behind weasel words.
Uh-oh. Weasel word. Yeah, he is a weasel. He's a psychopathic weasel. Do you know how we know he's a psychopath? Because you can see the whites around his eyes when he's looking at you. That's how you can determine who's a psychopath, who's not. And that man, that is a psychopath. All right, I'm just trying to adjust my... All right, I think I'm going to leave it there. I'm trying to avoid the whole copyrighted music thing. That sucks, man. It's so annoying when they do that because it's so unnecessary. Why did you have to play that? I mean, what was the point in that? I don't care about listening to Boston. I mean, come on. All right. Anyway, so this is from Eagle Wings. Revealed Adam Schiff connected to both companies named in $7.4 billion Burisma U.S.-Ukraine corruption case. Uh-oh. So what happened to this story? Where are the investigations? And follow the money trail. So this is from the Gateway Pundit. And we'll take a quick look into this. So as reported on Wednesday, the head of Burisma Holdings was indicted this week in Ukraine. Oh, spicy. Let's see. That's a little bit too big. Y'all read that? Just want to make sure that it's legible. Look, I can read just fine. I've got perfect vision close up. I'm just trying to make it big enough so anybody who might be watching on their smartphone, you can read along with us. All right, so Ukrainian prosecutor general indicted Burisma owner Nikolai Zoklevsky. I know his name, I just can't remember. Anyway, the claim alleges that Hunter Biden and his partners received $16.5 million over several years for their services, in quote unquote, in Ukraine. Vice President Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, took a lucrative post on the Burisma board in 2014. Of course, we remember that. Hunter Biden was making millions from the corrupt Ukrainian oil and gas company. Even though he has no experience in oil and gas, he really doesn't have any experience, as far as I know, in running any kind of businesses or companies or being a board member and all that. He got the job because he's Joe Biden's son. I mean, we know that. Anyway, new memos released earlier this month revealed Burisma Holdings, Hunter Biden's Ukrainian natural gas company, pressured the Obama State Department to help end the corruption investigation during the 2016 election cycle. Just 1 month before then, Vice President Joe Biden forced Ukraine to fire Viktor Shokin, the prosecutor probing his son, Hunter. Remember that? Remember, he was like the attorney general for Ukraine. And then Joe Biden called him, and he's like, he actually said this on stage. Joe Biden bragged about it. He said that he called him, or he called the president of Ukraine or whatever, and he was like, fire that prosecutor. Or yeah, he wasn't the attorney general. Yeah, he was like one of the lead prosecutors in Ukraine. But yeah, Joe Biden called one of the higher ups, if not the president of Ukraine at the time, and he's like, fire that prosecutor. And they're like, well, I can't fire him. And he's like, well, you better fire him, because if not, you're not getting $1 billion worth of U.S. aid. And he's like, what are you talking about? That's already a done deal. He's like, oh, no, it's not done yet. He's like, yeah, but it is. Okay, well, then call the president. Call President Obama, and by the time you get on the phone with them, the money's not going to be there. So anyway, like, he bragged about that, and he's like, well, what do you know? He got fired. So it's crazy, man. They really don't believe that they're ever going to get in trouble for this shit. To the point where Joe Biden, before he even became president, he was bragging about that on stage, on camera. Oh, yeah. Here you go. I guess I should have read a little further. So Joe Biden bragged about getting Viktor Shokin fired during a 2018 speech to the Council on Foreign Relations. That's where that happened. The media immediately covered for Biden and said that his targeting of Mr. Shokin was totally unrelated to the prosecutor's corruption investigation into Hunter and Burisma Holdings. Yeah, right. Burisma Holdings actually name-dropped Hunter Biden when requesting help from the State Department. Dude, that is such a corrupt company. Country, I mean, not company, but isn't Ukraine, hasn't it been like widely regarded as being among the most corrupt countries on the planet, and they had been for years, if not for decades? According to CD Media last week, former Ukrainian official Alexander Onichenko said Hunter Biden was receiving off-the-books payments from Burisma in the millions. So he had gone missing. Now this, Democrat Adam Schiff is linked to both U.S. corporations named in the $7.4 billion corruption case. Oh, wow. So that's from Methods. I'm not familiar with who that is. Methods reported. He's a blue check. It's not a yellow check, not a gray check. But Schiff is connected to both BlackRock and Franklin Templeton Investments, two companies that were named in the $7.4 billion Burisma U.S.-Ukraine corruption claim that was announced. And it looks like they got receipts. So clerk.house.gov, and, well, it has his name right there. It's small, but it says Honorable Adam B. Shifty Schiff. Here, let's see if I can try to make this a little bit larger. I don't know if we're going to be able to or not. Because images, I can't zoom into images on here. It really irritates me. So BlackRock California Municipal Income Trust, BFZ, and then BlackRock Muni Holdings California Quality Fund Incorporated, MUC. Value of asset, says none. Income types, capital gains. and dividends and interest income, 5,001 to 15 grand, and then the second one is 1,000 to 2,500. And the filer information is Adam Schiff, annual report 2016, and this is assets in unearned income. So that's very interesting. Then, of course, they got like Apple and Bank of America savings account, so on and so forth. Another one, Franklin Templeton Mutual Shares Fund Class C. Let's see. Value of the asset is between $15,000 and $50,000, and the income he received was $2,500 to $5,000. Capital gains and dividends. So it sounds like Adam Schiff, he's making money where he shouldn't be. So here, the final one. Last week, November 14th, the Prosecutor General's office, unnoticed by the media, announced a new suspicion to the notorious owner of Burisma, ex-ecology minister Zolkevsky. According to the suspicion, the Yankovic family is suspected in particular with legalizing or laundering of criminally obtained income through Franklin Templeton Investments, an investment fund carrying out purchases of external government loan bonds totaling $7.4 billion, Durkash said. And so they underlined, let's see, $7.4 billion and laundered the funds through an investment fund close to some representatives of the U.S. Democratic Party, of course. And finally, down here at the bottom, quote, the son of Templeton's founder, John Templeton Jr., was one of President Obama's major campaign donors. Wow. Another fund-related character is Thomas Donilon, managing director of BlackRock Investment Institute, and shareholder Franklin Templeton Investments, which has the largest share in the fund. It is noteworthy that he previously was Obama's national security advisor. Holy shit, man. Wow. I'm not seeing any of that in the news. That's very, very interesting. A little sus. So that's going to be down in the description if you want to go over some more of this information. It looks like I went over basically all of it at that point, but it's there if you want to click on that and check it out. So, wow, man, what a banger. Adam Schiff, man, he just keeps finding himself in hot water, but that's good. Fucker deserves it. Dude's evil. All right, so Eric Daugherty, holy crap, a group of 100 quote-unquote youths, which I'm assuming they're probably juveniles, but the way he quoted it, maybe they're not, but I thought they were. Anyway, they took over the park near the D.C. Capitol, firing shots and launching fireworks and also riding dirt bikes. The FBI and DHS have responded. Enough is enough. D.C. is a failed city. President Trump will now federalize it. So let's take a look at this. It's a couple minutes long. We'll see the ridiculous, wilding shenanigans these idiots are getting involved in. Where are the parents? Criminally charged parents. If the kid is out there firing shots, guess what? The parent's firing shots, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, they don't want me making the rules. Parents be going to jail right along with their kids. You got kids, they're your responsibility 100%. Unless you live in a blue state, blue city. Yeah, just, it's like, crime scene footage. Oh, there's a gun. There's the firearm.
They arrested someone. He's in the car behind me. Very quick response here by transit, metro, and some federal assets.
Good. So they got one. They claimed there were over 100. Did they round all of them up?
So we're down here in Navy Yard, Washington, D.C.
Okay, that was the park.
Photographing and filming a large group that was in this park behind me. You can see some of the leftover trash. Close to 100 people were gathered here, and we heard shots fired. I believe it was more than one. It's hard to hear in the moment. We followed police. They arrested a suspect at this place, and they recovered a firearm as well.
Lovely.
We have seen an unbelievable amount of assets being thrown at this. You have Metro, Transit, Capitol Police, and multiple federal officials. I've seen FBI, I've seen HSI, I've seen other kinds of park police in the area. They are throwing a massive amount for this specific incident here. It's very obvious that the city has taken a slightly different posture going forwards.
All right. And Trump's making an announcement tomorrow, not about this specific event, but he's making an announcement about cracking down on DC crime. So we're going to hear about that tomorrow. So stay tuned on that. Definitely going to be covering that tomorrow. Idiots riding around in dirt bikes. I'm assuming that's not legal in Washington, D.C. I don't know. I live in the state of Florida, and you can put a plate on just about anything. The state will let you register pretty much whatever the hell you want. I'm pretty sure that they'll let you register dirt bikes. However, it might be required that it goes a certain speed. I think it's like 35 mile an hour minimum or something like that in order to get plates. Plus, you got to have like headlights, taillights, and all that. But anyway. So this comes from Libs of TikTok. New, the DOJ is suing Oklahoma for a 2007 law providing taxpayer-funded college tuition benefits for illegals. The state AG has filed a motion in support of the lawsuit. The DOJ also sued Kentucky, Texas, and Minnesota for similar laws. No taxpayer-funded benefits for illegals who invaded us and broke our laws. Amen. So good. I'm glad they're getting sued. And they should be. And in one way or another, the state should be required to pay it back, which I don't know, man. That's at the end of the day, you're just taking it away from everyday taxpayers who wouldn't have agreed to that either way. At least not for the most part. That's just surprising, man. Oklahoma's a red state. I'm surprised they fucking did that back then. All right, so this is from RT. Bernie calls for an agenda. Let me make sure I got the right size. Yep, I do. All right. So Bernie calls for an agenda that speaks to the economic crisis facing working families. He says more income equality than ever, which he does have a point there, as 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Frankly, it's probably more than that, to be honest, but I'll take Bernie's word for it. He's the one that's always talking about this. So he adds, key to Democratic victories is to stand with the working class. Yeah, they're not doing that, dude. They're obviously not doing that. America First is for the working class now. Essentially, by proxy, well, not even by proxy anymore. Like, America First really is the Republican Party now. So, yeah, he's right. If Democrats want to win over voters, I mean, they got to get their heads out of their asses, out of their DEI asses, and stop falling off the leftist communist cliff and try to find what little IQ that they can scrape off the ground. But I don't know. I don't think they're going to be able to. I think they're just going to keep just going absolutely ballistic. They just double down and double down and double down. And yeah, they're the party of the elites. They have been for quite a while. And I don't know. Anyway, we'll hear what Bernie has to say about this.
You said the Democratic Party has turned its back on the working class. You'd said something pretty
That's
tough
an understatement.
when you were speaking to this crowd about Kamala Harris.
One of the reasons, in my view, that Kamala Harris lost this election is she had too many billionaires telling her not to speak up for the working class of this country.
No, that wasn't it.
Ouch.
That's the entire Democratic Party, dude.
I mean, I don't think that's... I like Kamala.
You're a multimillionaire. You got a bunch of houses.
Her core...
You're part of the problem, Bernie.
Were heavily influenced by very wealthy people. How do you run for president?
Mr. I had a honeymoon in Moscow in the 1980s.
Develop a strong agenda which speaks to the economic crises facing working families. You have more income and wealth inequality today than we've ever had. You have 60% of our people living paycheck to paycheck. You got a healthcare system which is broken.
No thanks to the Biden administration in part.
And despite spending so much, we're the only major country not to guarantee healthcare to all people. How do you not talk about those issues?
She talked about affordability.
Well, but in a vague... I don't want to...
Are you for lowering taxes, Bernie? Because that helps the working class.
The clue to Democratic victories is to understand that you got to stand unequivocally with the working class of this country.
Yeah, they're not going to do that, man. They have completely turned their backs on the working class to the point now where there's nothing they can really do to get them back at this point. I mean, the easiest way to tell is by them opening the floodgates and allowing tens of millions of illegal immigrants to flood into the country and take over the apartments and skyrocketing our rents, our utilities, taking away a lot of jobs. And now it's hard for a lot of people to find work, which ironically, a lot of Democrats who are crying on TikTok about how they can't find work, they're on their off time, they're going to these demonstrations of protests that are screaming for illegal immigrants to stay here. They're just innocent humans. They're just undocumented citizens. Even though they're taking your jobs and you're too stupid to realize that they had. But, all right. But anyway, yeah. I don't know. I don't know if the Democrats are going to come back from that one. But, I mean, he is right. And I've said it time and time again, if Republicans can try to figure out a way how to get housing under control, whether if we have to build millions of more houses, that's apparently what everybody says that needs to happen. We've got a housing shortage. And my big question is the reason that we have such a big housing shortage all of the sudden, it's probably because the illegal immigrants, because they all live somewhere. And if you get rid of 20, 30 million, however many there are, that would, in theory, not even in theory, just by common sense, it would free up a lot of housing. So I would assume that might drive down prices. Not to say that illegal immigrants are buying houses, that they have mortgages. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that the market in total, or in general, should start going down. But yeah, since 2008, we haven't really been building houses at the rate that we need to be. But still, pre-COVID, housing wasn't this crazy. It didn't double until just after COVID. All of a sudden, everything just skyrocketed. And I think there was a lot of fraudulent activity happening behind the scenes. And a lot of it was because of the stimulus checks and the unemployment checks and the rental moratorium. So the government was paying for people's rents for well over a year in some cases. And just the money was just getting printed by the trillions and just dumped all over the place. And as a result, you can't just print money. You got to labor for money for it to exist. And if you don't, there goes your inflation. Up and up and up. Oh, yeah. So let's do this one from Secretary Doug Burgum. This decisive action defends the American taxpayer, safeguards our land, and averts what would have been one of the largest, most irresponsible wind projects in the nation. This is from the Daily Caller. Trump is terminating an eyesore wind farm Biden wanted near a World War II memorial. Good grief. Yeah, wind turbines, that's probably one of the biggest waste of taxpayer dollars you can imagine because they're very inefficient. Put it into nuclear. That's going to give you a way bigger return on investment than stupid wind. So, bring this up a little. So, the Trump administration is moving to terminate a massive wind farm project that was to be located close to a World War II memorial site that the Biden administration ramrodded approval for in its final weeks. The Department of the Interior announced Wednesday that the agency plans to terminate the Lava Ridge Wind Project in southern Idaho, which the Biden administration greenlit in December of 2024 over intense local opposition. So nobody locally wanted it. The DOI cited that the project's approval had crucial legal deficiencies and noted local backlash as protests sparked over proposals to build the massive wind farm close to a World War II memorial site. Quote, under President Donald Trump's bold leadership, the department is putting the brakes on deficient, unreliable energy and putting the American people first, end quote, Secretary of the Interior Doug Burgum said Wednesday. Quote, by reversing the Biden administration's thoughtless approval of the Lava Ridge Wind Project, we are protecting tens of thousands of acres from harmful wind policy while shielding the interests of rural Idaho communities. This decisive action defends the American taxpayer, safeguards our land, and averts what would have been one of the largest, most irresponsible wind projects in the nation, end quote. So there's a little bit left to go over. Let's see, 231 wind turbines across almost 60,000 acres in Idaho. That's how big this wind farm is going to be. And by the way, each one of those turbines, they cost well over $1 million. Not to mention the amount that I'm sure that's probably going to be paid to lease the land. Maybe it's federal land. I don't. But either way, it's very inefficient. It's ridiculous, man. This whole renewable energy bullshit, they want our whole country to essentially run on batteries, really. And it's stupid. It makes no sense. It's absolutely ridiculous. But this article will be linked down below if you want to check it out. So this is from J.D. Vance. President Trump is close to securing the most significant diplomatic accomplishment in my lifetime, and he's doing it by focusing on peace and bringing an end to the conflict. America is lucky to have this kind of bold leadership at such a pivotal moment in world history. And he's probably talking about the meeting he's about to have with President Vladimir Putin this coming Friday in just a few days. It's currently Sunday now, so about 5 days from now, he's going to meet with Vladimir Putin in Alaska to talk about the whole Ukraine situation.
Let me move on to foreign policy because President Trump is expected to meet with Vladimir Putin at some point.
There you go.
Perhaps in the coming week. What are you expecting?
Well, first of all, I've got to give the president a huge amount of credit here, Maria, because this is a major breakthrough for American diplomacy.
He's already brokered 9 peace deals.
This war's been going on for over 3 years at this point. Well over 1 million Russian and Ukrainian dead soldiers. And as the president says, the numbers are probably much higher than the official tally indicates. There has been no substantial breakthrough. And for 6 months, the president himself, he's asked me, he's asked Secretary Rubio, of course, Steve Witkoff. We have been aggressively working, trying to break the logjam. One of the most important logjams is that Vladimir Putin said that he would never sit down with Zelensky, the head of Ukraine, and the president has now got that to change. We're at a point now where we're now trying to figure out, frankly, scheduling and things like that around when these three leaders could sit down and discuss an end to this conflict. Now, what do I think is ultimately going to come out of this? Look, it's actually very simple. If you take where the current line of contact between Russia and Ukraine is, we're going to try to find some negotiated settlement that the Ukrainians and the Russians can live with, where they can live in relative peace, where the killing stops. It's not going to make anybody super happy. Both the Russians and the Ukrainians probably at the end of the day are going to be unhappy with it. But I don't think you can actually sit down and have this negotiation absent the leadership of Donald J. Trump. And the president said this to me today privately, said, look, maybe this works out, maybe it doesn't, but it's worth the effort, it's worth trying, and we're going to keep on using the diplomatic influence of the President of the United States to accomplish an end to this conflict. And Maria, you know this, but other people may not.
I mean, look, if you look at it from Vladimir Putin's perspective, we've sent $80 billion that we've sent, not only in cash, but also in weapons to Ukraine to fight Russia. And I think Russia's lost like 20,000 soldiers already. So looking at it from his perspective, I mean, you would think that Vladimir Putin's like, look, we're going to have to get something pretty significant out of this at this point. Otherwise, we're just going to full steam ahead because y'all are just giving insane amounts of money to basically our enemy right now because we're fighting against them in a full-on war. And now the United States is going to build weapons for Ukrainians, but it's going to be paid for by the European Union. So I don't really know how this is really going to work out. I don't think that Vladimir Putin's really going to do anything. I think he's just going to meet. He's just going to listen, hear him out, and that's probably about as far as it's going to go. But what do I know?
If you look at the president's foreign policy accomplishments, if you look at Congo, Rwanda, a war that went on for 30 years, killed 6 million people.
What's happening in Russia and Ukraine.
If you look at the number of hostages in Israel, in Gaza, who have been released and gone back to their families, if you look at Malaysia, Cambodia, you look at all of these terrible conflicts, the president has shown a willingness to be the president of peace.
Yes, and I'm sure he'll do what Trump does best when it comes to negotiating and sitting down, being diplomatic and all of that. But whether if it's Rwanda or any of the other peace deals that he's done, that's not it. Those countries are fighting against each other. We're not supplying billions of dollars of weapons on one side and not the other side. You know, we're kind of standing from the sidelines looking at these two countries fighting each other, and Trump steps in and he gets them to agree to this, that, and the other, and then they agree to stop fighting, which is a wonderful thing. It's an awesome thing. It's just, in this instance, with Russia versus Ukraine, we're sending insane amounts of money to Russia's enemy country currently, and I just don't see how it's going to bring it into it by Trump just talking to him.
It's an amazing thing to have a president who's working to stop the killing when you've had for so many generations presidents who didn't care about bringing peace to these very conflict-torn regions of the world. It's something I think all Americans should be proud of, whatever their political party.
No, let's just hope so, man. Let's hope so. At least hopefully we'll get somewhere with it, or Trump will get somewhere with it. The fact that Vladimir Putin he agrees to sit down with them and talk to him is a good thing too. I know that they've been communicating by phone, which in this day and age, it's probably just basically the same thing as sitting down with each other, because the president, are they still doing it old school? Is Trump like actually picking up a telephone and dialing a phone number to talk to the Russian leader, or is he scooching up a tablet or a laptop and he's videoing like through Teams or some shit? I don't know. Probably not. Maybe it is still old school phone call. They probably make it more secure that way. So anyway, this is from Catherine Clark. Democrats fought to make tax filing free. Trump came along and killed it. He's given multi-billion-dollar corporations like TurboTax a green light to cash in on your refund instead of cutting your costs. Look, all I got to say about that is with regard to TurboTax, I always went with the easy filing. And in years past, probably 2 or 3 years ago, I didn't have to pay for taxes through TurboTax. But with TurboTax, you have to have the most bare basic ass form of tax filing in order to qualify for their free whatever. You can't have capital gains with anything, not with crypto, not with anything at all. No capital gains with anything, no investments in anything. Just a basic 9-to-5 job. You're not like writing off taxes with receipts or anything like that. It's just like the basic entry-level tax filing that anybody could possibly file, which is my level. that's what I've been doing to this day. I've got like a bare basic tax filing process for me. And TurboTax this year, last year, and the year before, they charged me like $120 to file my taxes. And they gave me whatever bullshit loophole excuse as to why I had to pay for this, which didn't make any sense to me. But I procrastinate like crazy when it comes to my taxes. I always file my taxes on April 15th because I just procrastinate a lot. So that's my fault there. So I guess I got to eat it. But I mean, that's a giant chunk of what little tax return that I get. But I brush it off like, all right, well, at least I'm getting one. I mean, there's a lot of people that owe a lot of money in taxes. But this whole thing that Trump is making TurboTax, like start charging us for their services, that's bullshit, man. I think TurboTax is charging everybody. I don't think anybody's getting free TurboTax anymore. Maybe unless you're on like welfare or something. Maybe those folks, maybe they get free tax filings through TurboTax. But I'll take a quick look at this. It's on CNBC. So I don't care about direct file. IRS chief says agency plans to end free filing program. So the Internal Revenue Service Commissioner Bill Long said the agency will end its direct file program after a limited pilot and one full filing season. President Trump's massive spending and policy bill includes funding to research and replace any direct e-file programs run by the Internal Revenue Service. Already the program is gone, Long said at a tax professional summit on July 28th. Bloomberg Law reports, quote, "You've heard of direct file, that's gone." Long said, "Big beautiful Billy wiped that out. I don't care about direct file. I care about direct audit." End quote. The agency has not confirmed the future of the program. Quote, "Commissioner Billy Long is committed to modernizing the IRS and providing a taxpayer experience that meets today's expectations, which includes giving taxpayers transparency into the status of their tax returns and audits," an IRS spokesperson told CNBC, make it in an emailed statement. So we look forward to Treasury's forthcoming report to Congress on the direct file program and on potential public-private partnerships alternatives to direct file as required by the one big beautiful bill. Let me see. I'll just read a little bit more. Well, here, let me see. 300,000 filers used direct file for 2025. 94% of users who completed an IRS survey rated their experience as excellent or above average. Well, yeah, if they didn't have to pay for it, of course they had an excellent experience because they got all their money back. Taxpayers who received an extension, haven't yet filed their taxes from last year, are still they're still going to be able to access direct file to get their returns by the October 15th deadline. So you can still file for free, yada yada. So anyway, that'll be linked below if you want to check that out on cnbc.com. So let's go to VA Secretary Doug Collins. Don't believe the spin from politicians like Speaker Pelosi. Department of Veteran Affairs is serving veterans better than or under President Trump than Biden. Wait times and backlogs are down, and VA has opened more than a dozen new healthcare clinics this year. So this comes from Nancy Pelosi. Trump's DOGE and cruel budget cut thousands of VA jobs, and he plans to terminate VA union contracts. House Republicans aim to extract profits from veterans' healthcare. Democrats are fighting back to strengthen the VA and protect the benefits our veterans have earned. Like they give a shit about veterans. I mean, how many homeless veterans are living in LA, New York, Chicago, all the blue states? Probably way more than they would care to admit.
Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi honored veterans at the VA Medical Center in San Francisco.
You shouldn't give a shit about
Day.
veterans. Are you fucking kidding?
The visit comes as the Trump administration and
it's all political
Department
posturing.
Of Efficiency plans to cut
are there going to be
tens of
cameras
thousands of
there?
Jobs. The White House
there are.
also
Okay,
says
I'll
it
go.
plans to end most VA union contracts. Veterans say they're already feeling the impact. One man told us another vet's surgery was
I think she's secretly in love with Donald Trump.
Staffing shortages.
Nancy Pelosi wants to have Trump's baby.
Firing vets because many of the people who are being
oh my God, I don't even want to imagine
who are being fired, not just in the VA but in the federal government, are
fraud,
veterans.
waste, and abuse.
I just come here to sing their praises,
fraud,
to honor our veterans.
Two Republican senators have introduced a bill calling for veterans to be allowed to get treatment outside the VA system, moving towards
you care, why don't you open up that $400 million checkbook of yours?
Pelosi says she and other Democrats want to strengthen VA services.
Yeah, sure they do. Yeah, right, whatever. So anyway, from Secretary Kurtz Wright, this administration is committed to reinvigorating our nuclear industrial base, delivering low energy costs for millions of Americans, and strengthening our nation's energy security. How are we doing that? Check this out. Last week, Department of Energy issued its 5th installment of a loan guarantee for a Michigan nuclear power plant, the first reactor to restart here in the U.S. That is very good. So Trump, he's lifted a lot of, he's got rid of a lot of red tape with regard to nuclear production for nuclear energy. And that's a very good thing because he's trying to get the U.S. in a full-on race against China with AI. And it sounds like China's got a head start, especially with energy, because they've got, it's like 32 or 34 major coal power plants that are under construction right now in China. And that's in addition to the slew of other coal power plants that they've already got. So it's not just a race to see who gets the upper hand of AI. It's not just that. It's also a race to producing enough electricity to handle all of that AI infrastructure because it is very heavily energy dependent. Just like a bunch of other things, electric vehicles, Bitcoin mining, and just consumer electricity too. So if we don't start building a much bigger energy infrastructure, then all of our power bills are going to go way, way, way high. All right, so from the White House, good Sunday morning. Every criminal illegal alien will be deported. Tom Homan is making America safe again. I don't care if this is copyrighted music or not. I haven't seen this, but I did catch the first few seconds of this, and I thought it was hilarious that the White House actually put this out.
Now, I'm going to say, if you're in the country illegally, you shouldn't feel comfortable. Absolutely not. I won't feel comfortable if I'm in the country illegally. If I'm in some other country illegally, I'm not going to be comfortable. You shouldn't be comfortable either, because when you enter this country illegally, you have committed a crime. You are a criminal.
This is from the White House. My, oh my, how the tables have turned. What is that, like from like Teletubbies or some shit? That's what it looks like. It's like that baby sunshine, whatever. I don't know. It's funny. The White House is memeing. All right, so this is from the GOP from 7 hours ago. And this is what I was talking about with regard to the press conference Trump's going to hold tomorrow. So this is from Donald J. Trump's Truth Social account. Oh, that actually made it smaller. All right, so I'll just read it from here. We are having a news conference tomorrow in the White House. I'm going to make our Capitol safer and more beautiful than it ever was before. The homeless have to move out immediately. We will give you places to stay, but far from the Capitol. Oh, man. The criminals, you don't have to move out. We're going to put you in jail where you belong. It's going to happen very fast, just like the border. We went from millions pouring in to zero in the last few months. This will be easier. Be prepared. There will be no Mr. Nice Guy. We want our Capitol back. Thank you for your attention to this matter. He's been saying that at the end of all of his True Social posts. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So, yeah, man, like, look, he shared pictures of tents. I guess they still got the whole tent city thing going on in D.C. I wasn't aware of that. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of homeless that are living in D.C. Yeah, I don't know. That's a really tough situation with the homeless because a lot of homeless people, they just want to be homeless. And, I mean, what do you do with people like that who, you know, they've been homeless for so long that if you put them in a hotel room or if you put them in an apartment, they're claustrophobic because they're so used to sleeping outside. And, you know, plus mental health issues. And, you know, at the end of the day, it's a free country. If you want to be homeless, I don't know, man. That's a huge conundrum. I don't want to open up that can of worms, but I've always taken a certain position when it comes to the homeless, a sympathetic one at that. So anyway, from RNC Research, Fat Cat J.B. Pritzker gets called out for Democrats' redistricting hypocrisy. Welker, quote, despite President Trump winning 44% of the Illinois vote in 2024, Republicans only hold 3 of the Illinois 17 districts. Just 3. These districts seemed designed to maximize Democratic advantage. Yeah, no shit. But let's check this out.
I do want to look at the map of Illinois. Let's take a look at this. Despite President Trump winning 44% of the statewide vote in 2024, Republicans hold only 3 of Illinois' 17 districts.
40% of the vote.
These districts seem to be designed to maximize Democratic advantage.
Because
What do
Illinois
you
is
say to
fucking
those
corrupt.
who argue that it's hypocritical for you to criticize Texas for...
Isn't it true that like the last 3 governors of Illinois were criminally indicted and didn't a couple of them go to prison? Or did I just make that up? I think that might be somewhat true.
Partisanship when your state also drew maps to boost your party's standing.
Uh-oh.
Well, remember that what Texas is trying to do is
deflection.
Violate the Voting Rights Act.
Texas.
We didn't. We held public hearings, legislative hearings. People attended them. They spoke out.
The Republicans probably had no say so.
There was a map that was put out. There were actually changes made to the map. And a map was passed.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, we held public hearings telling everybody what we're going to do, and there's nothing you can do about it. So Yeah, we held public hearings to just explain that y'all have no power. We have all the power because you voted for us, and we're going to do what we want to do. Whatever. So that's absolutely wild. Just let that sink in. That 40% of people that live in Illinois voted for Trump, but yet they don't have adequate representation in Illinois because they've gerrymandered the Republicans out of relevancy in Illinois. I feel really bad for people who have farmland in Illinois and live in rural Illinois. They have to deal with all this bullshit gun laws and God knows what else they've got to deal with out there. All right, so from Rep. Marionette Miller Meeks, MD, from 5 hours ago, 20 million of Iowa's 30 million acres of farmland are owned by people who are 65 years or older. And nearly 40% of that are owned by people who are 75 years or older. That is wild. Thanks to the One Big Beautiful Bill, these farms can be passed to the next generation without being taxed into extinction. Thank God. Land should stay in Iowa families, not in the hands of the Chinese Communist Party or the IRS. Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree with that. I think anybody who loses a family member, and if they leave behind their house or property, a farm, whatever it is that they leave behind, that shouldn't be taxed at all. I mean, hell, they've been getting taxed on that property the entire time they've owned it. So the government's getting enough. They're getting more than enough. And for them to insist that what's the death tax? What is it, like 40% or 35% or whatever the hell it might be, that you have to come up with that when it's handed over to you is just insanity. So, and for that many, for the majority of the farmland, what is that, 66.6% of Iowa's farmland is owned by elderly. That blew my mind. That was absolutely crazy to read that. So this is from Vice President J.D. Vance. So Vice President Vance praises President Trump's historic peace negotiations in Eastern Europe. And the quote, I'm sure, is going to be said in the video, so we'll just play the video. I don't think we've already heard this, but it might be possible because there are a few clips of him in this interview, the pre-taped one from this morning.
You want Putin to meet with Zelensky before a meeting with President Trump?
I actually don't think it would be that productive. I think fundamentally the President of the United States
I don't think we
has
heard
to
this
be
yet.
the one to kind of bring these two together. We're, of course, going to talk to the Ukrainians. I actually spoke with the Ukrainians this morning.
Yep,
Marco has been
Europe.
talking to them quite a bit. We're going to keep that dialogue open, but fundamentally, this is something where the President needs to force President Putin and President Zelensky really to sit down to figure out their differences. We, of course, condemn the invasion.
And try to get Zelensky to show up when he's not coked up.
But you've got to make peace here, and the only way to make peace is to sit down and talk. You can't finger point. You can't, wag your finger at somebody and say, you're wrong, we're right. The way to peace is to have a decisive leader sit down and force people to come together.
You do not want to send taxpayer dollars to Ukraine and taxpayer funded arms to Ukraine. Do
They've
you
had enough.
feel that the current state of affairs improve that?
No, what Ukraine needs to start doing is start to repay all of that money that we've given them. Even though the war's not over, they still need to start with it. And one of the ways that they've agreed to repay they're supposed to repay all of it in the form of natural resources like rare earth minerals and things like that. So they should start supplying us with these rare earth minerals already.
As the U.S.
We can get
will
some of our
sell
money back
weapons to NATO countries, and they will go ahead and send the weapons?
Well, two things on that. First of all, I think the reason that we reached this decisive moment, a real change in where we were, is because the president was willing to apply some significant pressure and actually say, if you don't come to the table, the American people, we're not going to get involved in this war directly, but we have a lot of economic points of leverage, and we're willing to use those to bring about peace. And that was a big thing that happened. To your point about weapons, what we said to the Europeans is simply, first of all, this is in your neck of the woods. This is in your back door.
Yeah, we got oceans.
You guys have got to step up and take a bigger role in this thing. And if you care so much about this conflict, you should be willing to play a more direct and a more substantial way in funding this war yourself. I think the president, and I certainly think that America, we're done with the funding of the Ukraine war business. We want to bring about a peaceful settlement to this thing. We want to stop the killing. But Americans, I think, are sick of continuing to send their money, their tax dollars to this particular conflict. But if the Europeans want to step up and actually buy the weapons from American producers, we're okay with that, but we're not going to fund it ourselves anymore.
All right. I mean, that I'm not crazy about that either. However, I guess the whole Americans getting jobs in manufacturing, and if they're paying for it, I mean, they're paying for it. So, I mean, one way or another, they're going to send weapons to Ukraine. So, Might as well be from America, I guess. So, all right. So this comes from Rapid Response 47, USA Ambassador to NATO on Friday's meeting in Alaska. At least I assume that's what that is. Yeah, U.S. Ambassador to NATO. That's what I thought. So on Friday's meeting in Alaska, quote, President Trump is really the only one that can make this happen. He is the sole reason this meeting is happening on Friday. He is a peacemaker. He's averaging about a peace deal a month. Yeah,
he save thousands of lives with a deal. And I think that by both sides communicating, by President Trump meeting in Alaska on Friday with either one or both of the combatants, I think this is exciting. And I think President Trump's really the only one that could make this happen. He's the sole reason that I think this meeting is happening on Friday. He's a peacemaker. He's averaging about a peace deal a month right now. We saw just this week where Armenia and Azerbaijan came together to settle their decades-long conflict. It's
on
it's
CNN.
been a series
Gotta love it.
of peace deals, and so I think President Trump is best situated to see if a deal can be had and if both sides can agree to ending the slaughter.
Oh yeah. Well, there you go. So that's from Rapid Response 47. So let's move over to FBI Most Wanted. The FBI seeks information regarding the disappearance of Mahmoud Shah Habibi in Afghanistan in August of 2022. A reward of up to $5 million is offered for information leading to his location, recovery, and return. So apparently he is a naturalized American citizen. So that's why they're offering so much. But he was working in Afghanistan at the time that he was kidnapped. Apparently there was something with the CIA that was going on. I actually linked something here. Yeah, here we go. So I found something from Reuters, an article about Mahmoud Shah Habibi, a naturalized U.S. citizen who went missing in 2022, and the Taliban claiming that they don't have him because they didn't give any context. They didn't. They just showed the flyer, and they're like, here, we're offering $5 million for this guy. Like, okay, well, what about him? I've never heard of this guy. So let's see. From Reuters, as a crowd looked on, uniformed Taliban surrounded the Toyota Land Cruiser in which Mahmoud Habibi, a naturalized U.S. citizen, sat. Other Taliban smashed open the door of his Kabul apartment, emerging later with his laptop and papers. Blindfolded in the backseat, Habibi and his driver were driven off by gunmen sporting shoulder patches of the Taliban's feared secret police. The General Directorate of Intelligence, according to several witness statements in U.S. government possession seen by Reuters. Afghanistan's Taliban government denies it detained Habibi, age 37, who was a former head of Afghanistan's civil aviation, while dividing his time between the United States and Kabul. Working for a private company, he became a U.S. citizen after the Taliban took power in 2021. The Taliban also says they have no knowledge of his whereabouts 3 years after he disappeared. This is contradicted by the witness accounts and other evidence, including data monitored from Habibi's cell phone, described to Reuters by a U.S. official and a former U.S. official familiar with the matter. The Taliban denials present a conundrum for the FBI, which is leading the U.S. government effort to gain his release, and for the State Department, which describes Habibi's detention a major impediment to exploring increased engagement with Afghanistan 3 years after his August 10th of 2022 arrest. U.S. President Donald Trump has made freeing Americans held abroad a top priority and already has secured the release of dozens, including from Afghanistan, Russia, and Venezuela. The case of Habibi, the only publicly identified American held in the country of Afghanistan, has been harder to resolve. This story is the most comprehensive account to date of the circumstances of Habibi's capture and includes previously unreported details. Among them, interviews with the U.S. official and a former U.S. official with knowledge of the case reveal that the Taliban likely detained Habibi because the CIA had penetrated the company where he worked. The sources say the U.S. spy agency had accessed one of the company's security cameras, helping it pinpoint the al-Qaeda leader, Ayman al-Zawahiri, in a Kabul guest house. Habibi's detention came 10 days after Zawahiri, the last of the top plotters of the September 11th attack on the United States, was dramatically assassinated by a U.S. drone strike on the guest house ordered by Trump's predecessor, Joe Biden. At the time, U.S. officials briefed journalists that it was a CIA operation. The U.S. sources told Reuters that Habibi was unaware of the CIA plot and was wrongly detained after returning to Kabul from a work trip to Dubai after the assassination, oblivious to the danger he was in. The CIA, the Taliban, the White House, and Habibi's employer, Virginia-based ARX Communications, did not respond to detailed requests for comment for this story. ARX has previously said neither it nor its subsidiaries were involved with the strike on Zawahiri. Reuters could not independently verify whether Habibi was or wasn't aware of the plot. In a statement to Reuters, a State Department spokesman called for Habibi's immediate release. We know the Taliban abducted Mahmoud Habibi nearly 3 years ago, the spokesperson said. A coworker detained with Habibi, then later released, saw him in GDI headquarters and heard him in an adjacent room being asked if he worked for the CIA or was involved in the strike on Zawahiri, according to one of the statements in U.S. government possession seen by Reuters. Then, in June and August of 23, the U.S. government detected that his mobile phone had been switched on in GDI headquarters, the U.S. official and former official said. So, let's see. There's actually quite a bit left in this article, so I'll just link it. I got about as far as I can go, even though I think I'm about finished with this episode, but I'm getting close to 2 hours, so I try not to go too long with these. But anyway, so definitely check that out, Reuters.com. It's linked below if you want to read more on that. $5 million reward if you're able to find them. If you've got enough talent in order to pull that off, you'll have $5 million waiting for you. So, and this comes from Homeland Security, another sob story from the New York Times. Merwil Alberto Gutierrez Flores was deported to CECOT because he is an associate of Tren de Aragua, a foreign terrorist organization whose criminal record included an arrest for having a loaded firearm and ammunition feeding devices at a school. The Biden administration released this dangerous criminal into our communities in 2023. President Trump and Secretary Noem are getting these criminals off our streets and out of the country. When Americans break the law, they face consequences. Now, criminal aliens and gangs finally do too. Yeah, it's only fair. So, supposedly, this New York Times article, it reads, ICE deported him. His father never heard nothing for months. ICE deported him. His father heard nothing for months. Then a call. Merwil Gutierrez is one of many immigrants across the U.S. who had been taken into custody by federal authorities, their whereabouts unknown or unclear. So I can only imagine that the article is probably trying to downplay it, probably trying to throw flack at ICE, probably trying to paint this guy as just some innocent, undocumented citizen. And that's probably the way of it. I would not be surprised in the least if that's how they're framing it. But yeah, I don't know. So I think that's pretty much all I got. Let me just take a look. Yeah. I think we're done. We are done, ladies and gentlemen. So anyway, if you enjoyed the video, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It would really mean a lot to me. And I'll drop a new show every evening covering the swamp and everyone living in it. The politicians, the bureaucrats, the agencies, everything else. I also post daily episodes to my X account, so feel free to drop a comment over there too if you'd like. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching, and God bless America.